Okay. I want you to know I spoke with Mr. Hobart earlier today, and he's got an appointment at 2 or 2:15, something like that. So he said he might be late. Well, he's definitely going to be late. So I'd like to call the meeting to order. Uh, DeLucci's here. Who else?
Perkins.
And the record should also reflect Brian Kidney, Adam Norris, Mark Thomas, Nancy Cooper, Cindy Gray, and our dear Becky Behrens. And I think that's it. Okay, we left off last time with the October monthly financial report. And I had mentioned that I had some questions. And so Cindy emailed me and said, can you let me know, Karen, what are your questions? So I was able to get off a few questions to Cindy. And Cindy, how would you like to do this, Cindy? Do you want me to go through my questions, or would you like to just, yeah, let's do it that way. My number one question is, why on some of these sheets in the budget, the monthly financial report, why are some of the unassigned fund balances at the beginning of the year changing in some funds and not changing in others? If it was the unassigned fund balance at the beginning of the year, I would think the number would stay the same. And that was my number one question.
Yeah, and you're right. Most generally they do stay the same. However, we did have some last minute adjustments from Jackson County. And so the expenses were incurred in the year 2020, and we didn't receive those funds until October of this year, just recently. And so according to the auditors, we needed to put a receivable in for last year for that amount. It was about $141,000, which is about what we're off on the balance. So there were two grants that we received money on.
And is that in the general fund, Cindy? Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, general fund, and I think it was all in the general fund.
Okay. Okay. And then
so it was just an audit adjustment that they wanted us to make.
Okay. So I noticed in the general fund, which is located on page 1, that the police expenses are up 3.19 million.
Yeah. So you sent me kind of a list of the departments. So the easiest answer to that one is October had 3 payrolls and September only had 2 payrolls. And so police is a $3 million payroll. So,
wow.
Yeah. So most of these expenses, the difference is due to the payroll, the extra payroll. There's a few other odds and ends of some annual maintenance on some contracts and utilities, those types of things. But the bulk of this is payroll, that third payroll.
Okay. And Cindy, next month in November, the council just voted to give $200,000 to Staywell. Is that $200,000 coming out of general fund, so we can expect to see that as an expense in general fund for November?
I'm not sure if it comes out of Staywell. I mean, out of the general fund. I'm not positive of that. I will check into that.
Yeah, I'd like to know where it came from for next. So when we have our December.
If you don't mind, this is Brian. I didn't mean to be on the call. I had a doctor's appointment that got canceled, so I am here. But Cindy, since she prepped for this, I will say any cash infusions, if you will, or anything that goes from the city to the Staywell fund would be broken down by the number of employees in each of those funds. So anytime we do a contribution into the Staywell fund, it's broken down by whatever the prorated share of each fund with the number of employees and retirees for that fund.
So it's not going to come, Brian, to your knowledge, from the COVID reserve, 1.468 million? See, I thought it was coming from the COVID reserve, but I don't know. And I just want to know for next month, we're in December, I'd like to know where the money came from.
Yeah, well, Cindy, we'll make a note of that and
Yep.
give you a specific of where that transfer would come from. Although I'll be honest, I'm drawn, when you say the contribution from the city to the Stay-Well Fund, are you talking about the an amount that would be needed to keep? I think we were talking about it was going to represent like a 5% increase from the city's contribution into the Stay-Well Fund. Is that the transfer you're referring to?
I don't know if it was 5% or not, Brian. I just know it was $200,000. I'm sorry. I don't know.
Okay, I'm drawing. Honestly, I was in that meeting. I'm just kind of drawing a blank on that $200,000 though. But any contribution we'd make from the general or from city finances to the Stay-Well Fund would come out in a pro rata share. But
Okay.
Cindy and I'll follow up to you and get you an exact breakdown when that happens.
Okay. Okay. And then I noticed that some account expenditures went up. I guess, is this on the line item expenses, Cindy, number 2 that I gave you?
It should be.
Then we'll wait on those. Page 2 on the Street Improvement Sales Tax Fund. Capital outlay went from 4.9 million to an amended budget of 29.3 million. And does that include the 15 million we borrowed?
Yes.
To fix our streets and our bridges?
Yeah, it sure does.
Okay,
So,
okay.
Yeah, and that's also includes the rollover from previous years too.
Okay, okay. And then on page 8, it's the police use tax. I noticed we spent $68,613, and I just didn't know on what.
So yeah, we actually bought some Ford Explorers. So there were 10 of those, and there were mobile radios purchased, software for their vehicles to run the equipment, tasers, and then the mobile radio units that the police officers wear. So they had a lot of purchases that we paid for in October. So that's why your encumbrance levels went down, is because we paid those off. The expenses would have been already in the expense, but the encumbrance reduced because we actually paid them off, or paid on them. Some of them were partial payments, and another payment will be next month, I believe, on a couple of them.
Okay, so the police use tax money, 68,000, was spent on equipment.
Yes.
Okay. Have we hired any new officers yet with the public safety money? Do you know?
I personally do not know if we have or not, but I can definitely ask.
Okay, I'd appreciate knowing for next month.
Yep, no problem.
And then I see on page 9, the health property tax levy, animal services, got $268,534. Is that right?
I'm getting to it.
And maybe I'm just not reading it right.
Which page are you on?
I'm on page 9.
9. Okay. And what was your?
I just was curious on animal services. From the health property tax levy, $268,000 was spent.
Oh, yes. Let me see if I have a note of that in my. I'm thinking we made.
I know the use tax is bringing a lot of money.
Yeah.
That's just surprised me that we would have spent that.
Nancy, do you by chance know what that was for?
On the animal services, on the health property tax levy, the 268, a lot of that will be some payroll related items. And then I think they may have some supplies. I can look here. Let's see. And if it would help, we could probably break that out a little bit differently versus it just being on one line. If that would help to see like
Like
Well,
payroll?
I was just surprised because, okay, so where's the use tax money for the animals? See, I thought that was really going gangbusters. I was just surprised we used this money. That's what.
Are you asking why there's no money on the tax revenue line item?
Yeah, now I'm looking for the use tax money for the animals. Where's that? Use tax, page 7. Okay.
Yeah, use tax is page 7.
Yeah, well, there's $811,000 in the fund balance right now, so I'm surprised that we would have used $268,000 from the health property tax levy. If there's 800,000 sitting in the use tax levy for the animals.
Yeah, we'd need to ask the director, how and why she allocates from one fund or the other fund, but they're both allowable type expenditures from each one of those funds.
Yeah, but the health tax levy was voted on by the citizens in a broader sense years ago, whereas the use tax money is very specific.
Correct.
So if we have 800,000 sitting in the use tax money that can only be used for animals, I would rather use that money and leave the health property tax levy money sort of back available for allowable uses if necessary. So I would appreciate knowing that for December, how that's decided.
Okay.
Oh, that's a good question. We'll follow up with that.
Thank you very much. Okay. And then on page 11, that's the tourism fund. And
yes,
the total fund balance is 1.4 million. Right? So
yes.
what is the restricted operating reserve of 376,000? What does that mean?
What was, repeat that question again,
I
Councilwoman?
know, I'm sorry about I tried making this better.
No, you're fine. I was scrolling through when you were talking.
Page 11, down at the bottom, this is tourism fund. At the very bottom, it has a total fund balance of 1.4. The line immediately above that is restricted operating reserve of $376,368. That seems like a lot to have as a restricted operating reserve. But maybe I don't know what a restricted operating reserve is. So that's my question.
Okay.
I think I can speak to that. And this is Nancy. A few years back, the director, Eric Erfer, I believe it was at the direction of the Oversight Committee for Tourism, they had decided to set some funds aside as an operating reserve. And it may go in line with like, how we have certain operating reserves that are so many months of cash sitting aside in case, an emergency or something happens. So we could get more details on that, but, and it has not really changed much. It probably needs to be reviewed to see if they really need that much sitting there or not.
Yeah, because if it's really just an operating reserve, it's 20%. And that's a lot of money. And we just heard Eric say we have to cut expenses in tourism because we're losing money. Well, let's take a look at and see where our money is. And if we're putting too much into a reserve, let's take it out and not cut the services. That's how I'm looking at it. So I'd appreciate an answer to that too by December 18 if possible. Because I think that's a big reserve.
Yes, we can follow up with Eric on that.
I'd appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, then I got to 17 and it's power and light and I groaned. And I said, okay, let's look at it. And my sticky note here says the revenue is up 7 million. The expenses are up 10.5 million. Supplies are up 4 million. I guess I need somebody to explain this budget sheet. Like the personal expenses, personal services are up 9 million. Other services are up almost 8 million. This is just, it's a lot of money. And our non-restricted resources available went down 3 million. So I guess I'm asking, where's all the money going?
Well, your personal services are going to be affected by that third payroll.
Okay.
So that's going to be a huge chunk there. Okay. I'm looking, I didn't do a lot of research on the electric side as far as the expenses go. I know.
I never got there.
Yeah.
Sorry. I only got so far before I had to send that email to you. And maybe this is a question for Mr. Nail. If you haven't really had a chance to look.
We can take a look at that and report back to you on that.
I'd appreciate it. Then the very next page, 18, rental income on the water fund. And my question, 35,000 was budgeted as rental income. Is that from the farmer's market financing? Or how's water getting 35,000 in rent?
Nancy, I think you and I talked about this. Do you remember what that was for? Because I know we looked into this.
The 35,000, no, that is not from farmer's market. I will need to look. They have certain revenue accounts that fall into that category of rental income. And I will need to double check and see exactly what that is. But I know it's not farmer's market, I can tell you that.
Okay, and that leads to my next question. Is the water fund getting interest on the money they loan for the farmer's market? And if it is, where's that reported?
That is going to be under, I believe, I think that is going to be under the part of the investment income line.
Oh, okay.
It's going to be in there.
Okay, it would be under probably miscellaneous revenue. Because it's not or investment income.
Yes.
Which one do you think, investment income or miscellaneous revenue?
Yeah, I think it's under the investment income because that loan, they're kind of considering that an investment type of return that they've done. But I can verify and make sure that I'm.
Because it's 200% above budget. Okay. And then we get to my page 22, and this is my, oh my goodness, stay well. I guess my first question is, really, we only budgeted 14.5 million. Wow. That just seemed awful low to me. And we only have 1.3 million in the fund balance.
Yeah, and that's mostly due to large claims that were paid out in August due to COVID.
Are any of those payouts, will those be reimbursable through the CARES Act funding?
I don't know. Brian, do you
I-
know if
I-
that's part of the CARES?
I can answer that. That would not be reimbursable from CARES. Any of the CARES, that would be in the workers' comp for any CARES for workers' comp purposes would be in the workers' comp fund. But this is just the medical side of things. We would need to check, but as Cindy said, these were some large claims in August. We may have some reinsurance coming back from this. So if we have a deductible, if you will, for reinsurance, I believe the council actually approved that last month. So if we have any claims over a certain amount, we go ahead and pay for it, and then the insurance company, Cigna, actually, we have reinsurance with Cigna. They would reimburse us for anything over that certain amount. I'm trying to remember what that amount is. Adam may know off top of his hand, but
I do. It was 250 and we made it 275.
there you go. Thank you. So if any of those claims were over exceeded that 275, actually in this case it'd be 250 since these would have happened in the past. We'd be getting reimbursement then from Cigna through the reinsurance, but I don't know of those claims how many of those may have hit that reinsurance amount.
Councilmember DeLucy,
Yes.
this is the city manager, Zach. Just very quickly, one thing I wanted to point about the month of August. During the first round of COVID-related shutdowns, many hospitals nationwide, and including those here in Independence and the Kansas City metro area, delayed and deferred elective surgeries. Now, elective is not just, fun to do things, a nose job or something like that. Elective could have been a heart procedure, a cancer treatment, something of that nature. In listening to the chief medical officers who have been tracking this over the last 8-9 months, the number and the aggressive type of cases that they are now seeing as a result of those delayed surgeries are much higher than they previously were. So, I mean, it's just medically proven out that a cancer that was at stage 2 is now at stage 4, from March to August. So therefore, the cost of these surgeries has become much more expensive because of the aggressive nature of those. And we think that is part of the causation of this huge hit that we've seen in August. But that's also why we have put out to bid the insurance benefit advisor service that we're currently evaluating right now with our Stay Well Committee representatives. Plan is to have council approve a contract with somebody in the month of December, do a aggressive analysis in the month of January, and then make recommendations to this committee and then the council about where to go with the Stay Well Fund in the month of February.
I'm happy to hear that because our expenses have gone up 23, almost 24%. And we only have 1.3 million in the fund balance. And in 1 month, it's been a change of almost 800,000. So at the rate we're going, we can't even make it through January. When did you say that we're looking at it?
That insurance advisor ought to be approved at one of the 2 council meetings in December, just depending on when our evaluation committee completes its work. But they know that they have to have that to the council in December, and then the new advisor will come on, and or whoever is selected as the advisor. I don't want to sound presumptive there. I apologize. The advisor will be selected. They will do an analysis and make recommendations in the month of January.
And when you say they're going to make you're talking about who we're going to go with, be it Lockton or somebody else, right?
The committee is going to be recommending which advisor to use, and then the advisor who is selected will be making recommendations about what needs to happen with the fund from a cash perspective. If and how much, and I think it's probably fair to say it's more of a how much conversation at this point, but cash infusion will be needed to stabilize the fund as a result of those cost increases I just spoke to.
And I had a question earlier, Zach. I don't know if you were on. My question was the $200,000 that we're putting into the Stay Well Fund. I wondered if that came from your COVID reserve on the general fund. Mr. Kidney thought perhaps it came from the various different departments. Do you happen to know off the top of your head where that 200 is coming from?
I don't, I mean, and Brian can correct me if I'm wrong. I believe our conversation with the Stay Well Committee representatives has been that we will make that cash infusion if necessary. And again, I want to be direct and say I believe it is going to be necessary, but that has not been made yet. So that will need to come as a recommendation to council to make a line item transfer from one fund to the Stay Well Fund.
Okay, I thought it had happened already. Okay, thank you.
Councilwoman, if I can. So Zach, I mean, looking ahead, I mean, the year's about up and the new year's going to begin, and you guys are going to start looking at your preparing for your budgets.
Right.
What are you seeing into the future on how this is going to impact our next year's budget?
Yeah, you know, today is Cyber Monday, and everything I'm hearing is that the real challenge with Cyber Monday this year is, are they going to be able to handle the volume of the orders happening? Which is great news for the use tax, not so great news for the other sales tax funds. I think the public health restrictions, the prevailing thought process here is that the brick and mortar stores are not going to see the traditional level of investment that they normally do. I think we are going to need to be prepared to hold the line as aggressively as possible. Now, I will say, and there's no scientific data to this, but Saturday I did drive past the Independence Center, and it looked like the good old days. The mall parking lot was rather full. So I don't know necessarily what that's going to mean in terms of cash register sales throughout, you know, the season. But I don't know that it will be totally devastating, but I think we need to be prepared that the convenience combined with the public health restrictions are probably going to mean we're going to see more online sales than we are going to see traditional brick and mortar sales. And without, you know, all those CARES Act dollars are set to expire here in 30 days time, and without any, you know, evident plan of any additional federal assistance, and that has been a big financial aid to our budget and I know to our residential and business community alike. So I don't want to sound totally, you know, down and dour, but I do think we need to be prepared to take a very cautious approach heading into the second half of the fiscal year, and as then we begin to prepare for next fiscal year as well.
Well, Zach, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to get down a squirrel moment here, but the county's still sitting on a large amount of cash that could be allocated back out to the municipalities. How is that looking?
Yeah, you know, I'm a big fan of going down fighting. So today I'm going to be sending a correspondence to the county, letting them know all the many ways that our organization and community can legitimately use those funds. And I'm not, you know, trying to take an aggressive tone there, just more of a, hey, if you're troubled in finding ways to allocate these funds, you know, we've done a successful job of testing well over 5,000 of our residents here in this community, of providing 2.2 million of utility rate assistance, helping, you know, provide the necessary personal protective equipment for our employees and whatnot, the technology upgrades. So we still have way more need than we have resources. And so we're going to be sending a further request to the county. Best case scenario that they oblige, but hopefully they'll let us know what their intentions are. Because again, Councilman, to your point, these dollars have to be not just encumbered, but spent by December 30th. So they've got 30 days in which to get this done.
Let us know if there's anything we can do to try to help out on any end here.
I certainly will, and I appreciate that.
Just one more question about page 22. Under non-operating revenue expenses, it has miscellaneous revenue of 366,000. Is that reimbursement to us? What is that?
I'm going to have to defer back to the finance team to help you with that one, Councilwoman.
Oh, I'm sorry, Zach, I wasn't asking you.
That,
Okay. Yeah.
that's exactly what that is. That's a reimbursement. That's either a pharmaceutical rebate or could have been, like I said earlier, the reinsurance
Okay,
proceeds. Yeah.
okay. And then on page 38, the Santa Fe TIF, I noticed that total expenditures were 265,000. And I just wondered where that money came from. I assume general fund, but I don't know that.
No, that they would not have come from the general fund at this time. That is a fund that we will continue to see go into the red until we have some way to get it back in the black, to be quite honest. Originally, I think I shared with the council several months ago that we talked with the underwriter that is working on the Crackerneck Creek project. They had asked us what our plan is with Santa Fe. And because the TIF will last another, I'm drawing here 15 years, I believe, that there's still hope that there could be a development that would be coming in to help with that. If not, then this is going to be one of those projects that's going to have to be, if you will, bailed out by the general fund or some other refinancing. You know, one of the solutions we're doing with Crackerneck is we're using increments from other TIF districts. Once those TIF districts are complete, that increment still goes, but it goes to pay off the Crackerneck bonds. That might be a solution then for Santa Fe also, is in the future, as theoretically as say Crackerneck is paid off, then it might be someplace that surpluses would then go to this fund. But this is as we've discussed over and over again, this is a troubled project, and it's still out there as one that needs a solution to.
Well, did we pay $265,000 to somebody?
Yeah, we paid debt service on this, and basically what happened. Basically, what happens then is this fund goes into a deficit against their share of the pooled cash fund of the city.
Okay.
And technically, at the end of the year, and you'll see on our audited financial statements, there is there's a loan, interfund loan between the other TIF districts to cover that deficit. In fact, I believe one of these pages actually summarizes all the TIF districts together. Get there. The page 35.
35?
35. If you look at page 35, and if you want, I could share my, and I'm sorry, Cindy, I'm kind of just jumped on top of this, but this is, I do know these, well, I'll try to take these answers. So thank you, Becky, let me share this screen. So I'm on page, let me make sure I get down there. Page 35. And this page is a summary of all of our TIF districts lumped together. If we made all of our TIFs into one fund, you'll see it all consolidated into this one fund here, and it's called the Tax Increment Finance Summary.
Okay.
So the way that we look at it, and the way the auditors have helped us with this, is we look at all of our TIF districts as a whole for purposes of cash balances. And you can see we do have some TIFs that have sufficient cash balances. But individually, some TIFs may be at a deficit, some may be a surplus. So technically what is happening with Santa Fe being in a deficit, some of the other than TIF districts are, their surpluses are covering that. I wouldn't say this is best practice, to be honest with you. I mean, this is the situation that we have right now.
Right.
And so, you'd asked for a summary of all of our economic development debt, and we are prepared to give that presentation in December. And we could talk about that a little bit more on that, but specifically speaking, Santa Fe it's underwater, and the way that we're covering it accounting wise, and it's not illegal. I mean, it is proper accounting practices. Our auditor signed off on it, is that these other TIF districts are covering that surplus.
Okay.
Okay.
So, so on page 38, where I'm back on Santa Fe again. So where it has total fund balance is a negative $894,095. That number is what Santa Fe TIF owes us. Or is that the number? What is that number, Brian?
Speakers were muted. I'm sorry. I didn't catch the question, but if you're referring to, there is technically a due from other TIF districts to make up this $894,000 deficit.
So that's what Santa Fe owes the other TIFs?
Correct. And I could pull up the,
That's okay.
I can do this next week, but I could pull up the audit and show you exactly how that looks on the audit if you'd like. But basically, you'll see other TIF projects will have something called due from, and it'll be it'll add up to that amount.
Okay.
But at this point, none of the deficits in any of our economic development funds are paid for from the general operations.
Okay. All right. So anytime with any of the TIF pages we have in our operating report, anytime I have a negative number for total fund balance, it simply means that the other TIFs are paying it, not general fund?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah,
All right.
the important, well, I mean, they're all important in their own special way, but page 35, as I said, summarizes all those. And that's why, and I appreciate Nancy put this together for this specific type of question to be able to answer that question. Overall, in all of our economic development funds, there's fund balance of $30 million. To
the good.
To the good, right.
Okay.
And you could probably see that as you peruse down through the 20 or so districts, you'll see some of them do have positive balances.
Right. Like Eastland TIF, that has a positive 14 million.
Yes, that is successful development.
Yep. John, do you have any questions on this?
No, I don't.
I don't think Mr. Hobart was able to join us. I don't. Is caller one Mr. Hobart?
I think caller one is Zach.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Okay, so why don't we go on to the line item then? Specific line item expense review. Brian, could you put yours up, because I didn't print mine.
Cindy, are you prepared to do that?
Oh, Cindy, great.
Actually, no, I didn't have that one pulled up. I was doing more of Karen's questions.
Okay. I'll get it in just a second.
Okay, thanks.
Oh, this is one of the, okay. That's not it.
The challenge. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I just love everyone seeing my background too. Thank goodness. This came from Jessica. Okay. Okay. Is this what you're asking about this report?
Yeah, those line item ones.
Yeah.
Like city council went up $70,000. City manager, 132,000. If you could just address where this money went and all that stuff, and why $10 is highlighted for whatever reason. See that?
So the city council and the city manager for the 70,000 and the 132, most of those that were due to that third payroll.
Again, okay.
Yeah, so all of those departments were, that major increase is due to third payroll.
Okay, all right.
And I'm sorry, I pulled up the wrong. You're asking about this report.
You're going too quick for me, bro.
Sorry. I believe you're asking about this report.
Yeah. Yes, I was. This is it. Right. Yes. And municipal court went up 170. I was surprised at that, but third payroll again. Okay.
Yeah, all of those are the third payroll. There was a few other items, but they were not real significant items compared to the payroll.
Okay. And then Brian, is there anything on the specific line item? I mean, has anybody been going to Vegas and not telling us or anything?
Well, if you recall, we do have a travel request report that we also run, that we post online, and that's been kept up to date. I don't believe that we've had any overnight travel since April. I don't believe.
Yeah.
There might be a little bit if we do pull up, but there will be there will be some sort. Here we go. I think you're asking about this specific. This is the overnight travel meetings, and it does look like there was some.
Probably went to Jeff City or something.
Yeah, and then you can just see there was a little bit out of council, mayor, clerk, city manager. And I'm sorry, I should have found out what this $10 is for. I didn't.
That's funny.
It's a membership fee.
Yeah. What tourism said it was going to cut some expense to help make their budget. Meetings, what was it that?
So through October, Park Rec and Tourism hasn't had any event meetings or travel.
When Eric appeared a couple of weeks ago, he talked about the 547,000 he wanted to reduce in tourism expenses. And part of that was reducing sponsorships, incentives, and trade shows. How much is that budgeted for on this? Is it that much?
I wouldn't think so. Those line items are not on this report.
Oh,
if you recall, this report is very specifically, I think we've talked about very specifically to those line items you asked to track specifically after you made a budget motion to strike these out. And so this is a very specific line item for just those items.
Is there any tourism on this, Brian?
Yeah,
is that it?
Yeah, this is it.
Huh. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Okay. So can you give us a number on December 18 as to, and I meant to ask Eric this, I'd love to know, he gave us a total, the 547,768 expense reduction. He gave us, that was the number he wanted to reduce, and he told us, this is how I'll get there, and he gave us maybe 9 or 10 items: reduce overnight travel, reduce sponsorships. I'm curious on what each one of those would cost. How
Okay.
much would that save? If you could get that for us, I'd really appreciate that.
Yeah, we'll just ask him to show his work.
Yeah, show his work. There you go.
Yeah, I'm trying to find that. Here's the tourism fund monthly report. And of course, it's just on these reports, it's just lumped together one expense of $2 million that was budgeted.
Yeah.
So if I'm reading this correctly, Brian, down here on the bottom line, taking everything into account, are we spending about $868,000 on events and meetings and different things?
Oh, it's getting back to the spreadsheet. If I go to the bottom line, this is citywide.
Right.
Now keep in mind, these are the actuals, these lines. The other ones are 19 actual, 20 actual, and the 21 budget.
Right.
With your permission, maybe next meeting, I take off these 19 and actual budgets and just get you to 21 budget and 21 actual. That might be a lot easier to read on these reports. There's a lot of columns going on.
Mm-hmm.
But to answer your question, in the 2021 budget across all line items, training education was budgeted at $154,000. We've spent $6,800 so far. Overnight travel and meetings was budgeted at $287,000. We spent $1,900, and events and meetings were $114,000. We spent $6,500. So obviously, the pandemic restrictions have, greatly reduced any type of training, overnight and events. Most of our training, I know for my department, we've just, there's so many trainers out there that are doing free webinars.
Uh-huh.
And we're taking as many of those as we can. So I would imagine the other departments are doing the same. Now I do know the police department, fire, I mean, there are things you cannot do virtually, right? In some kind of training. So we would anticipate they would still have those type of trainings. But again, because of the restrictions, that they're just not happening.
Okay. You have another question, Mr. Perkins?
No, that's it.
I don't have anything else. I mean, if anyone else has anything. Okay, so we added the tourism line item to the next meeting. And a little bit on Stay Well. You're going to give us an update on the COVID numbers. And I think that's the only two we added, wasn't it?
I believe so. Well,
That's all I had written down.
yeah.
Okay. John, is there anything else you want to add for December?
No, I can't think of anything.
I do also want to, if recall that we do have scheduled a debt presentation of economic development debt into December. I do have our financial advisor is going to be given a presentation at that time to go over those.
Yeah, the two things I have is update on debt status of various economic development projects, and then a quarterly review of IPL in response to the July 2020 analyst report. And now the tourism line item, the Stay Well report.
Okay.
And then with our typical monthly finance report, that.
Yeah. And Cindy, I'll tell you what, if I can get the questions to you early, I will.
That would be great.
Yeah.
If any of you have questions, yeah, send them to us, and it makes it go a little bit smoother for us too, being able to answer a little more detail for you.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. And is December 18, starting at 2:30 in the afternoon, is that okay with everybody?
Good for me.
Mr. Kidney, Adam, is that okay with the city?
Yeah, I'm just checking mine right now. It looks good.
Okay. Okay, well, if there's nothing else, it's 2:50. I appreciate everybody's time. Mr. Perkins, you want to move to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
I think it's a great idea. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks.